Well, thank you, Tim. First of all, kudos to Tim Frost and Dennis Michelson, or affectionately known as Dr. D, Dr. Demento. They've done a great job pulling this together. And as we've talked before, not going virtual is not an option. If you want to stay top of mind, you gotta roll with what these challenges are from COVID for us. So again, thank you guys for pulling this together. And we'll get to our panel here in just a minute. But good morning to all of our attendees online across the country, certainly Indianapolis, and here in Detroit, the Motor City. Welcome to RTBC 2021 or 2020, pushing it to 2021, and racing to the future. That's our focus today, as well as innovation through the Indy Autonomous Challenge. We actually introduced this last year at the SEMA show, and I did a great session at PRI with some of the speakers we've got today as well. And we want to give you an update on that, of what's happened in the last year, and a lot of great stuff has happened. So again, thanks to our online audience for being with us today. And first of all, thanks, and I hope you and your families and all of you are healthy and doing well, because these are challenges. But again, as I said earlier, we got to get moving together. We got creative through RTBC. We've gone virtual, and virtual is the new reality. Again, you've got to do this if you want to stay top of mind. So what I'd like to do is take a few minutes, just kind of introduce you to what I'm going to call the timelines and the history of how we got to the Indy Autonomous Challenge. And it actually starts going quite a ways back. 1964 is what I would say, and the New York World's Fair with the GM Firebird 3, the first autonomous car. And what's so significant about the 60s, I think, not just this car, but hot rodders defined an era. Hot rodders and racers defined an era and an attitude in the 1960s. So too will electrification, autonomous vehicles today, and certainly for the next generation of what my good friend Mouse McCoy calls digital hot rodders, folks that we'll be talking about for the Indy Autonomous Challenge. Flash forward about 30 years, 1997. The first actual automated vehicle demonstration was put together by a cross-industry collaboration with GM, Hughes Aircraft, Lockheed, Bechtel, and Caltrans. Yes, that's me in that photo with Don Pierce, Don Runkle, my good friend Don Taylor. And a lot of the technologies, telematics on those Buicks came out of aerospace and applied to racing. So it's pretty cool. So at highway speeds, those 8 Buicks actually went down the freeway just outside of La Jolla. Pretty cool. So you flash forward a little bit further into that, some of the biggest technologies that have come out of racing and that are in our motor cars today in our driveways are event data recorders. So the timeline, we actually put those first event data recorders, we actually pulled them off of shipping containers back in the late 80s and early 90s at General Motors and put them on vehicles. IndyCar was the first to step up. 1993, we were putting those on actual vehicles at racing at the 500 through Roger Penske, Rick Mears, as I mentioned, John Pierce, and great Terry Trammell. We did a great program there. Look what happened just earlier this year, the first, I say, fan-based race that we've been able to have this year when Ryan Newman crashed at the Daytona 500. Had those event data recorders not been on that vehicle towards the improvement, taking that information and improving vehicles even further to make them more resilient to crashes, and particularly to make sure that the driver lives, that's what some of the technologies we'll be talking about with the Indy Autonomous Challenge, solving extreme edge cases, and who knows what beyond event data recorders and things of that sort. And if you don't believe me, just take a look at what happened at the F1 race with Romain Grosjean. Think about what happened to him. When he hit that wall and the ensuing fire, he actually walked away from that. So kudos to all the people that have worked. I know Dr. Jamie Myers speaking with the ICMS, International Council of Motorsport Sciences today. A lot of these things come together through racing, certainly the OEM, the manufacturers, but organizations like this coming together with the great group of people that we'll have on the panel today. So you flash forward to today. That's what we want to talk about today, the Indy Autonomous Challenge. It's been a long way getting here, at least 40 or 50 years. The challenges that have taken place over the last 20 years, the DARPA Urban Challenge, started off with so many different competitors. It took 3 years before someone could actually win that, 7 years, and it actually created an entirely new industry, automated and autonomous vehicles. So we'll be talking about that technology as well. We'll get into an overview of what's happening with the Indy Autonomous Challenge. So let's kick this off. We've got a great panel again this year. We're going to kick off with Doug Bowles, president of Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Stefano DePonte, the CEO of Dallara USA, Matt Peak, the program manager, managing director of mobility, Energy Systems Network, and Rob Pruka, professor at Clemson University, graduate school, CU ICAR, and Ralph Shaheen, managing partner and president at Speed Sport, media partner as well. So let's kick it off. I'm going to turn it over to you first, Doug. And what we want to do is kind of just each of you take a minute or two to introduce yourself to the audience and some of the maybe the key remarks or key messages you want to make sure that we go through on the panel. So pass it over to you, Doug.
Well, thank you, John, and thanks for the introduction, and welcome everybody here for RTBC. Sorry, we're not doing this in person, but just like John said, we're excited that we get a chance to at least be together online, and we look forward to 2021 being a lot different and getting to see each other firsthand. And next year, sharing with you the results of what we're really excited about with the Indy Autonomous Challenge. John, you talked about how you dated this back to the 60s. Frankly, I'd like to date it back to 1909 when Carl Fisher and his founders built the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It was built to test the technology of the day, which was the new automobile. The technology of the day now is an automobile powered without folks, powered through the brain power and the intellect of these nearly 40 universities from around the world who are going to compete at that edge case, as you called it, here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It really is an extension of why Carl Fisher started the Indianapolis Motor Speedway 110 plus years ago. And when Matt Peak and the folks at ESN came to us, we were trying to figure out how do we stay true to that DNA that Carl Fisher started in 1909. And Matt and the gang at ESN had a great idea to keep us connected there through the Indy Autonomous Challenge. So we're really looking forward to learning from these universities, learning from these students, some of the brightest minds in the world. And I know a lot of the OEMs around the world are paying attention to this because these are the folks who will be making a difference in the way we look at transportation going forward. And I'm hoping that 50 years from now, people look back at this as a really big moment as it relates to the autonomous vehicle and just really the technology that we can learn through it. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I know when we first announced it last year, I was supposed to be there for that announcement. Unfortunately, I got called back home because a big announcement was happening here in November last year that Roger Penske was going to buy the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So just a couple of hours really after we made that announcement, we made the announcement about the Indy Autonomous Challenge. And I know there was a little bit of, if you're a big race fan like me, you understand the importance of the personalities of the sport. So those drivers are really, really important. So the idea behind this isn't to replace the driver. The idea behind this is to really highlight those people who make the drivers go faster and give the drivers tools maybe in the future that help them make better decisions as they're competing wheel to wheel at over 230 miles an hour at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So really excited about this panel. Really excited to learn from the folks, the universities around the world. We're really excited to partner alongside our longtime partner, Dallara, who talk about safety and innovation, has really driven that for us in the IndyCar series. And then, like I said, I can't wait to learn from the folks in Orange at Clemson and certainly all the universities that are going to participate here.
Excellent. Yeah, so good point. So I do stand corrected there, Doug. 1909 is when this started. And you're absolutely right. It was a momentous day at the SEMA Show 2019. As you mentioned, I think when Roger Penske bought the Speedway, I remember Mark Royce telling me he had to leave a meeting because he had to take a call from Roger. And so momentous day, very good. So up next, Stefano, please tell us a little bit about you and what you want to talk about today.
Yes, sir. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me to this great panel. I'm very excited to be here for the second time. I remember last year when we had a face-to-face meeting with a lot of fans in industry at the PRI show. Challenging time this year is different, but I'm sure we do have same followers and even more for this excitement challenges. And a couple of things I want to highlight. First of all, what Dennis was saying before, the collaboration amongst the motorsports folks and family. And this is a great partnership because they're united and put together the academic world, the industry world, the institution, the marketing, and the industry. So what a best collaboration, what a great opportunity to show everyone effort, everyone consideration that we have for the sports and everyone to work to improve innovation and technologies. The other things that Doug has said about, we don't want to replace any drivers. This is a new challenges, an engineering challenges, and I think the drivers will be the university, will be those students that will try to make those cars fast and obviously to obtain the best results and the speedway. And also on top of that, besides the regular fans, we're going to have another type of fans. They are all the industry. The industry, they're watching us to see what we're able to do, what we're able to achieve, because this is the future. Motorsport is the future. Motorsport is adding every year in every series, in every occasion, something to improve the technology, which will be first of all in safety. We recently see big crashes in Bahrain in Formula One. We see that in IndyCar very often. So the industry, they are there to perform the best safety along with the performance of the car itself. So this is a great engineering challenge for Dallara. We recognize the difficulties because I mean, it's the first time ever that we compete in with this kind of series. But as an engineering company, we love challenges. We love to learn from it. And we you know, like a new project, we're going to start very humble. We work together with the other institution, with the university, with the other partner, and we will try to do and to deliver the best product ever.
Excellent. Yeah. Having Indianapolis Motor Speedway and Dallara part of the Indy Autonomous Challenge, you can't get better partners. For the man that pulled it all together, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be here. I can't believe that it's been a year since we last gathered and participated in this panel. John, your presentation couldn't have teed up this discussion better. You know, first, had I remembered that GM put together such a cool rocket-looking car back in 1964, perhaps we'd be going with a different vehicle with the Indy Autonomous Challenge. I mean, no offense, Stefano, but I mean, that was a sweet-looking car that John flashed on the screen there. So maybe someday, Dallara will design cars that look like that. But secondly, as you know, just to echo your thoughts and Doug's and Stefano's, this is really about driving technology forward. This is about innovation. And what's been so amazing and humbling over the last 12 months since we last talked about this is to see all the brilliant minds that have gathered to innovate in a variety of ways. Since we last met, we recruited over 30 universities from around the world, literally around the world, representing more than 500 of the top AI, computer science, automotive engineering, and other collegiate minds. They're all focusing their talents on developing the next generation of software that's going to enable not just automation, but also overall vehicle safety. We've also, you know, seen Clemson and Rob will go into this in more depth. Take an existing Dallara car built for a person, barely big enough to fit a person, and engineer into it all of the most advanced electronic componentry to enable that car to drive itself come next year, and to see those Deep Orange students gather and the talent that has been amassed and put forth and you know, for that engineering exercise is just amazing. And then on top of that, we've seen you know, really a top-notch roster of sponsors gather over the last year to support our effort, to support all of the engineering, to support the students, to support the innovation that they're working for. We have Bridgestone, we have Valvoline, we have AD-Link, we have Schaeffler, we have Aptiv, we have Dallara, we have Clemson, we have New Eagle. What we have is really a blending of historic motorsports innovation with a new wave of electronics and electronics developers and suppliers to create the synthesis that really hasn't been, you know, put forth on the world stage like this before. So a lot has happened in the last 12 months. We're super excited, and you know, a lot more is going to happen in the next 12 months.
Excellent. Good. Yeah, I can't wait to get to that update. So Rob, you're a big part of this, engineering the prototype, architecting the vehicle, and engaging the 30 plus universities from around the world.
Yeah, thanks, John. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm Rob Pruka. I'm a professor in automotive engineering at Clemson, and I'm leading up a team of through what we call a Deep Orange project of about 40 graduate students and around 10 faculty and staff here at Clemson to integrate this car together, really. So take all of the wonderful products from all the sponsors that Matt just mentioned, put them into a vehicle that's race ready for the Indy Autonomous Challenge. So it's a huge challenge to try to replace a nearly perfect driver, right, that you see in racing. And so this is really what our students have on their shoulders. Make a car that can perform similar to a racing driver and do all the other things that you need, like race control and everything else to make the Indy Autonomous Challenge successful. And at the same time, make a platform that these university teams from around the world can put their latest software ideas into and really test and make this competition come alive.
Excellent. Yeah, great stuff. I think excellent. So a lot to come back to there. So Ralph, as Stefano mentioned, the biggest myth I think of the Indy Autonomous Challenge is, taking the driver out of the loop. But as Rob just said, it's not about taking the driver out of the loop. It's about improving the performance of automobility in the world to the next step, the next generation. So from your perspective in media, what do you want to make sure we cover today?
Well, that's what Speed Sport's here for. Somehow we missed that 1909 event at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We haven't missed many at that fantastic facility, but we started in 1934, so we missed a couple. But since then, we've been there for everything, and this is just the next one for us to cover, right? What racing is all about innovation and advancement. Always has been, always will be. Whether it's aerodynamics or engine performance, tires, safety, all of that. And as the motorsports authority on the journalism side, Speed Sports always been there to cover that and help push that information out there, not just to the racing industry and the race fan, but to the world, so that everybody understands what's going on. Dating all the way back to, at Doug's place, the innovation of the first rearview mirror, right? So this is just the next step in that process. And I think where Speed Sports going to play a key role is by being a part of this panel and being in the middle of all this discussion, helping to get that word out there. Because look, there are a lot of fans out there that every time they hear the word autonomous, they go, whoa, wait a minute. I like my drivers. We all do. We love our drivers. We love keeping our drivers safe. We love seeing our drivers go faster. We love seeing our drivers push the limits. This is just another step in helping them to do that. And Speed Sport's going to be there to help learn all about this, push that information out there, and educate the racing industry and the world about what is being done.
Excellent. Great comments there. And again, it is to make the vehicle safer. And you've got great drivers like Ken Block, worked with Stanford University to take the best knowledge of racing and drifting champion of the world, putting that into the engineering algorithm so that Rob Pruka and his students could put that into a vehicle, in this case at Standard, into a drifting DeLorean, I think it was. And it actually outperformed Ken Block, and he was happy as can be to see a vehicle that could do that. So, but again, it wasn't about taking away Ken Block's job. It was about demonstrating what a vehicle can do when pushed to the limits, and that's what we want to talk about. So, well, good. Let's kick some of these ideas off. And as we've talked about before, certainly racing is the Gemba. It's the ultimate proving ground. Certainly, IMS is the racing capital where a lot of this gets proven out, and it's all about basically technology demonstration and solving problems on the world stage, and certainly entertainment. But I'll submit it's beyond that. Racing is in the entertainment business for sure, but certainly the inspiration business. And I would think that the Indy Autonomous Challenge is probably one of the biggest inspirations to the next generation of digital hot rodders and certainly the next generation of engineers. And I think with that, I'd like to find out each of your comments on that inspiration that is coming. Let's start off with you, Doug. I think, again, with the Speedway and what you had to do this year without fans. You're on mute.
Yep. All right, so there you go. No, I think you're right. Racing, and especially the Indy 500, is an awful lot about inspiration and the stories that the drivers tell, the heroics that the crews have during the Indianapolis 500. And, as I'm calling customers every night to thank them for coming here, I hear about the inspiration that they have and how much they look forward to coming back to the 500 every year and what it means to them to watch the race, to see the heroics that take place here. And one of the challenges all of us have, frankly, even in the automotive industry, is how do we connect through heartstrings, the passion, as well as the intellect, with the next generation of automobile enthusiasts or technology enthusiasts. And that's what I'm really excited about through the Autonomous Challenge, is our ability to engage the next generation of bright minds through, starting with the folks at Clemson and then going across these 30 plus universities that are going to be here. But beyond that, the other universities that aren't even participating, the other engineering students who are out interested in the automobile right now, interested in technology and figuring out how they can apply it to the automobile. And if you think about the DARPA challenge and what a challenge that really was, it inspired people to do things that maybe we didn't think could be possible. And I think that's exactly what the Indy Autonomous Challenge does. This isn't just going to be cars driving around autonomously. This is going to be cars driving around at high speed with other cars. They're going to have to think for themselves. They're going to have to make split-second decisions. And these are very inspiring activities. So I do think motorsports is something that is more than entertainment, as you said. And I think this particular challenge is motorsports with a twist, and motorsports with a twist that really appeals to the electronic age kid, young adult, who's really used to computers and can now take that computer and marry it with what was the technology that most of us on this panel grew up with, which was the love of the automobile. And I just think we're going to learn an awful lot from this. And what I said from the beginning, I'm hoping that 10, 20, 50 years from now, people look back at the Indy Autonomous Challenge and say, wow, that event made a difference in the way and the advancement of autonomous cars, autonomous vehicles, driverless transportation. There's a whole bunch of things we're going to learn from this. And it is going to inspire a lot of people to do a lot of different things that maybe right now we haven't even thought about.
Yeah, I can harken back. I can't imagine what those engineers were like back in 1909, and they heard about this race that was taking place down in Indianapolis. So, any other comments? Anybody? Well, open stage. Inspiration.
John, I'd even say that in some ways, the students that we work with every day, we're making them traditional race fans, driver race fans too, because they're seeing how hard it is to do what these people do in the Indy 500, every year. It's just amazing. And so it's been interesting to watch our students kind of evolve and get a new appreciation for racing and just how difficult it is as you're trying to do these, really, sometimes maybe simple tasks for a human driver, like, hey, go out and follow the pace car and start in position 3, become a pretty hard software program to write in a driverless car. And so it's really made us think about racing as it is today and break it down. And it's been, I think, pretty inspiring. And I also think you've gained a lot of fans around the world. Racing has in general, all the students that are working on this, because they have a new respect for how hard it is to do what these teams do nearly every weekend.
Absolutely. And we're a long ways from actually proving it all out. But again, it's the journey, just like the DARPA challenge. Any other comments? Anybody else on the inspirational side of the Indy?
I like to add, and I make the echo of Robert. This is an inspiration that is felt all over the world, because let's remember the university they will come to compete at the Speedway from every part of the continent, every part of the world. So this is more than a passion. So and another quality, another thing I would like to add, this is also a matter of bravery. We are the first one as a group to introduce such an innovation and technology racing with autonomous vehicle in the temple of the speed at the IMS. So a bravery for industry, a bravery for engineers, a bravery. So this work that can be to the racing world, because you need to be brave, you need to challenge yourself, you need to go and fight the limits. So this is a way of discovering a limit on technology, on electronics, to see how things work. This new sensor will work on a car, on a vehicle we know drivers. So I'm very excited to see the result of it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I was going to say, Stefano touched on something that I think is really important to understand. This is a challenge that nobody knows what the outcome is going to be. And for the universities that have stepped up to do this, he's absolutely right. It is about bravery, because it's an awful lot easier to sit back and watch when the playing field is completely unknown. And it says an awful lot about the programs that these universities represent and the students that they represent, the entrepreneurial spirit that really frankly has defined what makes our country so great and makes racing so great. They deserve a big award just for stepping up to the plate to try this challenge, because at the end of the day, nobody may get there this first time around. So that says an awful lot about the universities and the kids or the students in those universities to step up to the plate, and bravery is a great way to describe it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Dr. D had a panel on diversity, and Jimmy from Penske Enterprise, I think, Chief Diversity Officer at Penske Enterprise, was talking about that. And he said, be brave, try something different. And I think that's what this is on a technology front. Matt, great quote you had a couple times ago in the Autonomous Challenge leaderboard. It said, a friend of mine likes to say that the world's biggest challenges are an entrepreneur's biggest opportunities. I think that's the great lead into you. Now, what are you hearing from the universities about trying to solve these unbelievably challenging problems?
I feel like that question kind of builds off of your previous one, John, where, first off, these students have in mind history, right? Doug mentioned the DARPA Grand Challenge, which came about more than 15 years ago and was so revolutionary at the time. Robotics was thought about as, NASA projects, moon landing craft, hazardous waste disposal and whatnot, and to come along and put forth $1 million prize to challenge teams to drive cars through the desert for 140 miles was just mind-blowing. And our students see that prompted a creation of new history for robotics. It created the modern day autonomous vehicle industry. It directly led to ADAS technologies, advanced driver assistance systems, being deployed on vehicles today, which are out there saving lives and whatnot. So recognizing the power of prize competitions to shape history, to spur innovation is very much top of mind. We also know that these students are very much inspired by traditional motorsports. I mean, for something like this to come along at the world's most famous racetrack with 200-mile-per-hour race cars, open wheel race cars screaming down the straightaways, it's just something that they've never been exposed to before. And when we look at the 2021 activities that we're teeing up, we got a number of them that our students are pretty excited about, but one of which is the fundamentals of racing workshops that are just, for our students to interface directly with professional race car drivers, not about automation, not about robotics, but simply about maneuvers. What does it take to win? What's the strategy behind racing? Because when these students when they get out on the track next year, yeah, these cars are robots, but they're programmed by real live people. The code that drives them is code that has been informed from human perspective. So the teams are very much central to the race next year. And these are the things that are top of mind. So there's no shortage of challenges that are in front of them. But what's cool is that we're seeing these two things play out, history and motorsports, to really inspire and motivate them.
That's a good point. And competing on the code, on the software, and the fusion of the sensors that have to come together. Jim Farley, CEO of Ford, had a great statement a couple of weeks ago about Ford is going to compete on their software, in particular the software that differentiates Ford in the automobility industry. So I think there's a big challenge there for the Indy Autonomous Challenge to do that, but also that's what the manufacturers are actually looking for. But Ralph, from your perspective, is there a disconnect between what manufacturers and the technologies they want to develop in racing and what fans want to see at a racetrack?
I think there is a little bit. I think that's where the education part comes into play, so that the fans understand that the industry, the automotive industry, hasn't lost sight of what they want to see and what they enjoy. I also think there's certain areas where this will work and certain areas where it doesn't need to maybe invade, if you will. I think what we're doing with the Indy Autonomous Challenge is a fantastic idea. I think Formula E is a fantastic idea. These are all great opportunities for advancement in technology, but they don't have to necessarily bleed over into everything, right? I don't want to necessarily go to Kokomo and see a sprint car being driven by an autonomous style of racing, right? I don't necessarily want to go out to Pomona and see nothing but electric dragsters. I want to hear nitro. Doesn't mean we can't have an electric category or even an autonomous category that competes as part of the weekend. But we don't have to take this all across the board. But I also think that as the education comes around and people see what everybody is really doing here, they'll become more comfortable with it. And it will become more interesting, more exciting, more understandable, and something they get intrigued by. And hopefully it really inspires, as you mentioned, John, the younger audience who maybe will say, you know what, 30 years from now, maybe all autonomous sprint car racing is pretty cool as long as it's powered by a 410 cubic inch methanol burning engine. I'd be okay with that. Maybe there's a mixture in there. We just don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in all of our lifetimes, it's going to be a fantastic coexistence of burning fuel. I mean, there's nothing better than the smell of race fuel and castor bean oil in the air. But you're also going to see the electrification. We're going to have hobbyist cars. We're going to see racing. And I think we're going to see a whole spectrum of actually more choices in racing because of this. Very cool. Very cool. Quick question. I think, in terms of appealing to the next generation of fans and enthusiasts, certainly autonomy is going to be a little ways. It's going to be several years, I think, as the speeds come up with the Indy Autonomous Challenge. But electrification is already here. We saw it at Le Mans. We saw the hybrids winning with Porsche and Toyota. So electrification is here. And at the SEMA show, Jim Campbell, General Motors, introduced the E-Crate motor package. So that's getting out to the performance and the next generation of tuners to take their classic traditional hot rod, convert it over to electric propulsion. So Stefano and Rob particularly, will these vehicles be internal gas combustion engines or will they be electrified?
This one's going to be an IC engine. It's going to have a big, loud 4-inch exhaust. I don't think Ralph will be disappointed at all.
That's
in this case, Indy, huge straightaways, right? Long corners. You need about 350 kilowatts, or say 400 and so horsepower continuously around that place. It's difficult for an electric powertrain to do that, and you also have really minimal braking chances there, so you can't really regenerate electricity. And so IC engine is the clear choice here, the clear technology for this challenge, and it keeps people like Ralph happy, and myself as an engine person as well happy. But in this case, clearly the IC engine was it. But we did look at all of it, and one of the things that we did have to consider is that the electric systems on the car, all of the lidars and cameras and everything, they take about 2 to 3 horsepower to run of electricity, and so that's a little bit of a change that we've had to make to the powertrain, but it's just part of driverless vehicles going forward.
Absolutely. Stefano, any comments there on the powertrain in your Deliro?
Oh, yeah, well, you can, it's a traditional car, so on Indy Light design. So basically, it's a good car, even good looking car. We say it's one of the best products came out from the Lara factory as a design. And Robert had the chance to have a car down Clemson with the students, so he puts already their hands on it. And yeah, I mean, he's got all the best characteristic to be a very performance car. And it would be very interesting to see the electronic system integrated to this existing chassis and see how performant. And going back to your comment, we can also smell not only the fuel but also the rubber of tires. So that's a good combination for the traditional racing cars.
Oh yeah, and if you look at what Ford has done with the Cobra, the e-Cobra, and what GM did with the e-Copo Camaro, there's a new cool factor being developed here to engage the next generation. And again, I think we're going to see side by side internal gas combustion engine versus a pure EV. So we're going to see a lot of fun stuff in the coming years. From Matt, from an update, are we going to see the hackathons return here this May and is everything back on track, if you will, because of the COVID-19 challenges?
We are. One of the lessons that we learned from 2020 is that if you're going to have a global pandemic, serendipitously schedule your virtual portions of your event to be concurrent. This last year has seen an intense online flurry of activity that's been sponsored by ANSYS and Microsoft. With Dalara's support, they've created this virtual world representing the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Oval, our race car built upon the Dallara IL-15. And through a series of hackathons, we've had 2 so far, and we're going to be doing 2 more of them. We're progressively challenging these students to increase their game, to get warm with their code, and it builds up, putting them head to head, all the way and culminates in May of next year with a virtual race run on the same ANSYS Microsoft system, where these teams go all out for $150,000 in prize money. And what's pretty cool about this is that, this is an effort to really demonstrate the power of simulation and how far you can get in advancing vehicular technologies in a virtual world, so that when you get on the track, when you get in the real world, you're cost effective. You've come a long way in developing your systems, and you're ready to run, by the time you get on the track. So hackathon number 3 kicks off in just a couple of days. Hackathon number 4 is in Q1 of next year. And then we've got this virtual environment where teams on their own are going head to head, just like video gamers do. They're logging in and they're gonna, collaborate with their fellow team members to practice racing against each other. And then come May, they go all out for 150K.
Wow, that's cool. That's a great update. I'm certainly looking forward to that. And as we start emerging out of this COVID era, I would think by April, the vaccines being implemented and deployed, we should all be able to get back together for the what number is this, Doug, coming up on the Speedway?
Yeah, it's number 105, and it's 172
Oh.
days from now. So we're counting that down, hoping that we can have some folks here in May.
Yeah, I bet you there's someone online named Roger Penske that's counting those days down too. So, okay, well, cool. This is our white flag lap. This is our question. You guys can think deep. We're going to start with you, Ralph. But if Ray Haroon, Tony Stark, Steve Jobs, take your pick, or Chrissy Connimack, who are in our online audience today, what's the single most important thing you would want them to take away from our remarks or discussion, your comments today about the Indy Autonomous Challenge and the future of motorsports and racing? So let's start with you, Ralph. Biggest thing you'd like them to take away?
Don't be afraid. Don't fear this. Welcome it. Be open to it. Hear about it. Learn about it. And welcome the innovation, because there's a lot coming, and it's going to be beneficial in a lot of ways that we just don't know yet. It's no different than when, say, the advances in aerodynamics first came along. Let's just use that as an example. And everybody starts thinking, oh, you're taking the air and it's making it easier on the drivers and all this type of stuff. Well, it helps. In some ways, it might make it safer, but it constantly evolves. And that's going to be the same thing here with every bit of technology that's ever been introduced into motorsports. At first, there's a worry that maybe it's going to take away from what we like and love about the sport we're so passionate about. But then you give the people that are so brilliant in our industry an opportunity to really work with it, and the drivers and the teams to get in there and master the new technology, figure out how to make it work. Tracks adjust, the sanctioning bodies adjust. Before you know it, it's just enhanced the sport and made it better, safer, more enjoyable for the fan on the entertainment side. There's no reason to think that won't be what happens here too. It's just so early in the game that most of us, outside of the majority of the brilliant people on this panel that understand this technology way better than I do, they know what's coming and what it will do. The rest of us, like myself, we just got to wait, be patient, and let you guys do what you do so well.
Cool. And I think the consumer awareness through racing, particularly Indianapolis Motor Speedway, will be tremendous for consumers to understand this technology and not to be afraid of it. So being brave. So Rob, what's the biggest takeaway?
Well, brilliant people make the world go round, and this is a huge opportunity for just hundreds of people around the world to get an amazing education. First, that's the thing I worry about at Clemson, and it's really just about talent development and to help drive this technology into the auto industry and ultimately save lives in the future. So it's just an outstanding opportunity that Matt has put together for all of these people that are involved. And again, it's really all about people, even though we're talking about replacing the driver, but it's really a people-driven business.
People driven. I like that. Be brave, people driven. Matt, what's the biggest takeaway you want our audience to hear?
Want to see the future of the automotive industry, tune in now and look at the teams competing, look at their minds, look at the talent that they're putting forth. I have no doubt that the people that are a part of this competition are going to be big names, come 5, 10, 15 years from now.
Excellent. Stefano, what's the biggest takeaway for the audience?
Surely the awareness to be able to accept challenges. This is an engineering challenges that involve university, institutions, industries, marketing people, everybody. And the takeaway also is that the state of Indiana and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, they are the forefront runner to accept this challenge. And around these two institutions, I think we're very grateful because we got all the motorsport business turning around for the beneficial for everybody, and thanks to the state and IMS that we can compete in this challenge.
That's excellent. I think certainly I think all the folks on the panel making the IAC inspirational and cool. So go let you finish it up, Doug. You've got the checkered flag. What's the final comments?
Well, I think you take the comments that we've just heard from everybody else on the panel, and it boils down to one thing. We're being true to the DNA of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, true to the DNA of the Penske organization and Roger Penske, frankly, true to the DNA of motorsport across the board. Many of the folks who are listening to this panel right now will completely get this. As racers, as a motorsports industry, we've always wanted to lead. We've always wanted to test things, push them to the maximum that you could push them given a set of rules. And I think that that's really what this says. Motorsport can be used not just for entertainment, but to drive the next generation of technology, the next generation of brilliant people who are going to go out and make a difference in the world because of what they've learned through the platform of motorsport. And I think if you could bring Ray Haroon back, as you said, or a Tony Stark, both of them would, I think, be really proud of the fact that technology is being advanced through the platform of motorsports. And I can't thank Roger Penske and the Penske Entertainment folks enough for this opportunity to do this. And frankly, Carl Fisher for building this facility 110 plus years ago. And I think he'd be smiling and really proud to know that we were still testing new technology here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yeah, that is cool. And again, Elon Musk, aka Tony Stark, is actually planning on racing autonomous race cars on the moon in 2 years. So be brave, embrace the technology. So I want to thank our gracious host, Tim Frost, for pulling this together, Dr. D, Dennis Michelson for leading the sessions and finishing up with our last session right after this.